everyone. My name is Meg Kruger. I'm the content specialist with Pioneer Athletics. And today we are joined by Amanda Potter. She is the assistant superintendent for Valhalla Golf Club down in Louisville. So we're very excited to talk with her. You're going to maybe recognize her from our Women in Turf campaign. And she's going to kind of jump over now and help us with our Inspiring the Next Generation campaign. So Amanda, I'll give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your current position.
For sure. So like Meg said, I am the assistant superintendent at Valhalla Golf Club up here in Louisville, Kentucky. I started out as an AIT actually about a year ago, and then I took the assistant superintendent position, I would say like end of February, beginning of March, sometime in there, and have really enjoyed diving in, you know, kind of stepping up in that next role. You know, as y'all know, transition zone grass, trying to grow cool season is tough. So that's been a challenge for me, and also a way to learn a lot about cool season. But like I said, I've enjoyed, you know, my time here, and hopefully we'll be here for, you know, a good bit of time to come.
And, you know, just diving right in, how did you initially become interested in turf? Like, that's always something that's so interesting for me to hear, because you know, on my radar, it never even occurred to me until I was put in this position to connect with you guys. So I would love to hear how you initially became interested in it.
Right. So I grew up, you know, in a very small town in Upper East Tennessee. And so pretty much everybody knows everybody. And I kind of started doing landscaping and mowing and stuff like that for people. So whenever it got time, I was like, okay, I need to start deciding, am I going to go to college? Am I going to do this for the rest of my life? Like, what am I going to do? So I actually tried to pursue, you know, tried to apply at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville for a landscape design degree, because I was like, I love landscape. This is awesome. I go to apply and they asked me for a portfolio. And I was like, I don't have one of those. I don't even know what that is. You know, I was like, yeah, maybe that's not it. So I was like, okay, maybe landscape architecture will be it, because it's still in that landscape realm. I loved, like, you know, trimming shrubs, doing mulch, stuff like that. And so they also asked for a portfolio, and I started looking. I would have to go to architect school. I would have to do this, that, and the other. And I was like, I don't want to be in school for 8 years. So I went on UT's plant science website, and I started looking at their concentrations, and I found turf grass management. And I was like, oh, that would be, you know, pretty cool. Don't really know anything about it. You know, grew up playing softball, stuff like that. So I had no idea that sports turf was even a thing, because I grew up in such a small town. So I click on it. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. I start researching it. I was like, this is great. Like, the pay range is, you know, pretty awesome. I think I'm going to do it. So I go to orientation, meet my advisor, John Sorokin and Brandon Horvath, up at UT. And I was like, this is cool. Like, I'm going to do it. And they were gung-ho excited because I'm a female. They only had one other female in the program at the time. And they were like, yeah, you have to be here. And pretty much since then I've been, you know, all in. So I didn't even know anything about it, just kind of stumbled upon it, and here I am.
And that's so interesting, you know, the point you made about being from a small town, because I had a similar experience where, like, if our fields, you know, were ever taken care of, it was just done by like the custodian if they had time or something like that. So it was never on my radar. So, you know, in your experience, you definitely had to seek out a lot of your own information.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, you know, you mentioned that you just went on University of Tennessee's website, but was there any other resources that kind of helped you when you were in that preliminary stage of kind of discovering like what career options you had, or was that, you know, the main place to start for you?
That was really the main place to start for me. I knew I wanted to go to UT because from where I grew up, like, my parents raised me as a Vol. So I was like, I'm going to have to be going to school there and experience it myself. So there was a lady that came, like an agriculture extension lady from UT, and she came and was talking, and we were like, oh, this is really cool. They have a great agriculture program. So that, other than that, I pretty much seeked it all out myself. She was like, y'all need to check out what concentrations we have. So that's kind of how I knew, okay, well, there's a little bit more than just, you know, this broad spectrum of plant science, you know.
And yeah, and that could even be an opportunity for our industry, is, you know, because I don't think this is something we can rely on a high school counselor to educate students on. So maybe that's an opportunity in our industry, you know, an outreach program to start it right at the high school level. Don't wait for them to, you know, become possible interns when they're in college. You know, really reach out and maybe do some education on the high school level, because that's really when that career exploration and those big decisions will be made. So that's a great insight. And, you know, that kind of leads into your time at University of Tennessee, and really what kind of internships or career exploration did you conduct while enrolled in that program?
Yeah, so my very first month at UT, I contacted my advisor and was like, hey, is there any jobs that I can work, you know, that are turf related while I'm in school? Because I didn't want to go work like a retail or a fast or like a restaurant or something like that. I was like, if I'm going to be here, I'd rather work at a golf course, sports turf, do something like that. So I reached out to him, and he got me in contact with a guy named Daryl Denny, who was the head of softball and soccer at UT. So within my first like month and a half, I was, you know, a student worker at UT, worked at primarily at softball and soccer, and would work at football every once in a while. So I did that for my 4 years there. And then between my sophomore and junior year, I went to a club called Royal Poinciana Golf Club down in Naples, Florida, and worked under a guy named Matt Taylor. That was a experience in itself, because you're in Naples, there's a lot of money. So that taught me a lot about the warm season Bermuda grass. Like, hey, you can beat the crap out of Bermuda grass down here and it's going to thrive and survive. So I was there during their summer, during their verticut period. So learned a lot about kind of how to get that grass back to, you know, its full potential. And then I did my 6-month internship between junior and senior year. And I did that up here in Louisville, at Louisville Slugger Field under Tom, which was awesome. His last season. So that was, you know, something special to kind of see, you know, all the people come back and visit him, like, oh, I would love to see you again. This is your last year there. Like, and kind of his transition over into soccer. That was, you know, that was awesome. And then working with Todd and Aaron and, you know, all the guys, and like, you know, just being around that legacy of, hey, this is Tom Nielsen, this is Slugger Field. And then outside of those two internships, I didn't take one between my freshman and sophomore year. I just went back home and did my landscaping gig, and then came up here, did my AIT stuff, and then now here I am.
And, you know, you touched a little bit on Tom Nielsen and how you're now probably a proud member of the Nielsen Mafia. We're big fans of that gentleman over there. So really, I think that's a great segue into like mentorship and how important that has been, you know, how important that role has been in your career. And, you know, maybe advice that you could give to, you know, people that are in that role, that have the opportunity to be a mentor. What really resonated with you? What was really effective in the way that your mentors have kind of, you know, helped bring you up in the industry?
Right. So since we were just talking about Tom, I'll kind of use Tom as my, you know, main mentor. In a matter of like 6 months, like I said, he became like a second father figure to me. I lived with him when I came to Louisville for, I think, right at 2 months. And it was just like a big, happy family. It was awesome. So then, like, you know, when I was there, one thing that resonated with me is Tom wants to teach you and he wants you to develop skills on your own. So he would be like, hey, here's the task I would like to have done. I want you to do it the way that you think is the best way. And then if that's not the best way, I'm going to kind of, you know, guide you to the way that, you know, we do it this way because it kind of works the quickest, it works the best. I've been doing this for a while type deal. So that was one big thing. And then just Tom's he was inclusive to everybody. It didn't matter where you were at. I was an intern with 2 guys that were like 28, and then there was another intern that was my age, and I was the only person enrolled in turf. So that was kind of cool, like to see where they were coming from and how they fit in. And, you know, the game day guys, and then Scott Gerlach, who has been working game day with Tom for like, I think this is his 17th year as a game day guy. So just kind of seeing that, and really I would say like it was all of them that like kind of molded me into who I like. That 6 months was like life-changing. So yeah, and then like advice, I mean, just be Tom Nielsen would be my advice. Is anything that Tom Nielsen asks you to do or says, hey, you know, this is the way I do it, and he like creates that family atmosphere. Like nobody's a stranger to Tom. And even Todd, I would say I did a lot of stuff with Todd up at Oldham County High School. So just like he would let me go out there and be like, hey, well, let's try this fertilizer, let's try this, and just letting you do it on your own instead of, you know, they're like, hey, let's do it this way before you even get to attempt your way. That's kind of, you know, and then it helped me mature as like, and helped me be more confident in my decision making. And then even leadership, like Tom would, or really a lot of the mentors I have would say like, hey, here's a crew for the day. Here's kind of what we want. And I hope that you can do it the way that we like to do it. If you find a better way, that's awesome. And even John Ballard here, the golf course superintendent at Valhalla, he's very good about, you know, making that, you know, everybody is there and we're like a big happy family type deal. And then I would say my last, like, you know, school wise mentor would be Dr. John Sorokin up at UT. I mean, anything I needed, any kind of school work I needed help with, if I had a question about this, that, and the other, I mean, he's constantly calling me saying, hey, you know, here's a job. If you're interested, apply for it, get the practice of an interview, do this, do that. And so I would say those people would be my, you know, I have a lot of mentors. I feel like I'm leaving people out. So really anybody that I've come in contact with, the guys at UT, I feel like they all have shaped me into who I am today.
You know, one thing that I think is so great about everyone I've come across in this industry is it's not like you are the only one who's experienced this kind of camaraderie and mentorship. Like this is something accessible to anyone in the field. And if you're a student, you have a plethora of opportunities available to you, and you're going to have those, as you said, life-changing experiences if you seek them out. You know, it's not a matter of like, they're only taking 2, you know, students out of the entire industry. It's, you know, there are plenty of opportunities to kind of get connected with those mentors and really, you know, start to see an impact in your career. So I love that, you know, you had that experience, and I love that it's accessible to really the majority of the students of it in the industry. So that's wonderful. And my follow-up question to that, you know, working with some veterans in the industry and, you know, coming across a ton of people along the way, what would you say is like the biggest misconception people have about your generation? You know, when you show up on day one, have you ever experienced any like, you know, misconceptions that they might have about, you know, the TikTok generation or the Gen Zers or anything like that?
I would say like, the biggest misconception, just like from being, you know, a couple different places, would be like that we can't think for ourselves, that we like, okay, I'm 50 years old. I've been in this industry for however long. The way I do it is the right way, and your way does not matter whatsoever. And then just like being capable of doing the work, especially as a female. Like, I mean, I'm 6 foot tall, so I'm a bigger female, but like, I've experienced like being around other females that are maybe not as able or whatever, but just like give them a chance. So that would be a big thing for me. It's like, just give the people, I mean, on day one, you walk in, you've only spoke to them twice, maybe 3 times on a phone call or this, that, and the other, just checking in. But I would say just like give those people a chance to prove themselves before you have a misconception of them as they walk in the door. Like a clear mind is something that like when we get a new employee, I'm like, I've never met them. Okay. So I want to have the clearest mind ever, as, you know, when they walk in the door, here's your chance to prove yourself. And I mean, even on that first day, I mean, you're nervous. So I was nervous. I mean, I knew that I was walking into, you know, greatness with Tom. So I was nervous as heck the first, you know, week even. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to mess something up. He's not going to like me, you know, this, that, and the other. But he gave me a chance. And that's really, you know, the biggest thing is just go with a clear mind so that those people feel welcome.
And that's great advice for, whoever you come across in the world, in life, is just going in with, no preconceived notions about this, that, or the other. And one thing that I think I really understood after getting to know Mr. Nielsen is that he empowers his crew members. And I think that's something that a lot of people, if you have misconceptions about this next generation, maybe empower them to prove you wrong. Somebody might be coming in with a chip on their shoulder, empower them to prove you wrong and to be the best that they can be. Put a hose in their hand, let them get on a mower. That those kind of experiences are going to really make them feel like they can own what they're doing.
Right.
So I would love to ask you, what's your 5-year turf plan for someone, entering the industry? What do you see down the line?
So this is a hard question for me because, right now I'm in golf because sports, kind of went downhill for a minute and now they're coming back. So really my 5-year turf plan would be working at either a soccer facility where, they have multiple fields to kind of maintain, or really any kind of sports complex, university wise, there's major interest in this little league, like, high school, middle school age travel ball. And there's massive complexes. So that, I think that would be a pretty cool gig. But really, I want to kind of get back into that sports turf. Not really anything against golf. I mean, obviously, I've been in both. I just want to get back into that sports turf feel. I just kind of like the atmosphere a little bit better. But yeah, definitely somewhere, university or sports related even would probably be my 5-year turf plan.
That's awesome. Well, I know that we'll be seeing great things from you. The next question I'd love to ask is, what do you hope for other young women entering the industry? Any advice you have or any hopes that you have for someone who, is similar in your position, who's, going to be a minority in the industry?
Right. So my biggest thing would be to just put yourself out there. It's really hard, like, to go into your first day of work and you're the only woman. You're like, oh, this is really weird. Like, what are these guys going to think of me? Are they going to think that I can do it? Are they going to think that I can't? So I would say put yourself out there and just like try to prove yourself. Like, don't ever play your female card. Don't, like, I do my very best to not ever be like, oh, well, I'm a female, so I don't have to work that hard. So I feel like that's kind of why we have that misconception, is because people want to play that card, and then now it's kind of cast on everybody. Well, if you don't play that card, put yourself out there, put your best foot forward every time. And that's really with anybody, but you just have to, like, the guys are awesome. Like, most of the guys I work with, I hang out with outside of work. So once you put yourself out there and really become included, and you kind of have to meet them where they're at and kind of be, they're guys. So they're going to talk about whatever they're going to talk about. You just kind of have to be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to just talk about that with them instead of, oh, well, I'm not going to talk about that because I'm a woman. And it's a little bit weird to navigate at first, but once you kind of figure it out, I think you'll be set, in whatever you do.
That's great advice. And as someone, I grew up with 3 older brothers, and
right.
I definitely find myself surrounded by more men in my life than women. And I think that's great advice, is just, meet them where they're at. When they're talking about something that you wouldn't normally talk about with, a group of girls, like, have fun with it. I mean, yeah. I love pointing out sometimes, like, how ridiculous the conversations are.
That's my favorite. That's kind of my favorite part of it.
Yeah. Like, just so you guys know, this is not a normal human really conversation. I love that. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I think you have some incredible insight to share. And I think we're all going to be really excited to see what's going to come out of your corner here in the next several years.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate the time and the, really, I mean, Tom and Todd, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing it. So I think very fondly of both of them, obviously.
So do I. Oh my gosh. Both of them have been featured in our Pioneers in the Field campaign. And when I started this job, that was really the campaign that I came to the table with, that I wanted to launch and conduct. And Todd was the first gentleman I called on. And just his enthusiasm about being a part of the campaign. But then he also taught me so much about the turf industry just in those first couple months of my job. And I just feel like he's connected me to all these different people. And then he connects me to Tom, and that's a whole nother sector of the, world that I've been able to get connected with. So I agree. I think so fondly of them.